There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone to the infrastructure and projects meeting today, and welcome to those attending on Zoom. I don't know where to look, but I assume here's something. Oh, there we go. All right. We do have an apology from Councillor Chet. Can I have the mover and second for that? Thanks, Trish. Thanks, Steve. All those in favour?
Aye.
I just wanted, before we progress any further, just acknowledge the passing of Councillor Lindsay Abbott, and what we'll do is just have a moment's silence in recognition of Lindsay's long service to the council. I think he did an initial term in the 70s and then did 3 terms in the mid-2000s, so just we'll have a moment's silence for Lindsay. Okay, thank you. And yeah, thoughts are with his family and through this time. So, do we have any declarations of interest in regards to the agenda today? We don't have any public forum. So we do have one major later item, which is the capital projects report, which came through late. It's tab 9. So I need to move to I can have a mover and seconder to receive that. Thanks, Tom. Seconded, Alex. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Just one other change of May, and Jamie, I'll just come to you on this. I might move the response to notice of motion to the last item, so that then you're sitting at the table for both the capital projects update and the notice of motion. Are you happy to do that? Yes, we'll just make that one change to that, to the agenda. So the minutes of the infrastructure meeting on the 13th of May.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Alex and Leslie. Discussions or any points to note on those minutes?
And the recommendation to council.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we'll move through to tab 6, which is the Three Waters Pipeline Renewals Update Program. And we'll just present that. Welcome. So this is just for receiving noting. Oh, sorry, I must also say before we start, we are under time constraints today because we've got a big agenda. We've got some council only time at the end, and we need to be out of here by 5 o'clock. So I'm going to stick pretty closely to standing orders in respect to speaking. So you will only get one quick. So if you could please remember that before you. Sorry, thank you.
Good morning, councillors, the chair and council staff. Purpose of this report is to present the Three Waters Pipeline Renewals Report and update. I'll take the report as read. I just wanted to touch on, I know it's been discussed in the last few meetings about the Spond Mersey Bond Street project. It's been delayed, and the reason for that is it's been delayed twice and it's been added to twice. With working in the Bond Street area, we've been confronted with contaminated ground, highly contaminated ground, archaeological interest, crossing over with iwi, with that area being reclaimed. It is actually technically the old riverbed. So that's what we're working on at the moment, working on environmental safety plans, and we're just getting ready to submit a resource consent to move the material off-site. So yeah, hopefully in the next 6 weeks that's out to the market, and that is overdue, but that's a bit of context of why it is late. And yeah. So that's all from me specifically, but if you have any questions.
Okay, questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the update, because I have been one of those councillors that have asked why that's been delayed and exactly what the contaminations were. So is that asbestos?
Through you, Chair. The pipe's asbestos, the ground's contaminated with hydrocarbons and heavy metals. This goes on. It's a complicated site, and we're working through that. Is to go to certified landfills and trying to reuse as much on site as we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long of a time frame do you think that will be sorted out by?
I reckon that 6 weeks will be out to tender, so then there'll be probably another couple of months before we're underway. Yeah, so hopefully it can be completed in March. Be nice.
Thank you.
Other questions? Nico?
Not really a question, just a reflection really. The two of the projects that have got contractors doesn't have the resources to.
Yeah, I know that.
Tom's raised this earlier on, and I have as well, that going forward on Three Waters, regardless of what structure, this is some headwater that we're going to face, that the contractors will not be able to pick up enough work to be able to satisfy their ongoing needs in Three Waters space. Just a bit of reflection on that.
Rob, have you got any comment on that? Like, it is an interesting comment.
For each year. Yeah, it will be challenging with the current resource available in Invercargill. We're getting consistently about 4 different bidders on projects, and we've currently got them at fairly high capacity of their ability working for us at the moment, so it is a challenge. Yeah, providing that consistency of work to them is important to give them the confidence to grow. So the skill shortage isn't just sitting with, professionally, it's right across the working spectrum. So yeah, there's definitely some challenges there.
Yeah, it's something to note, Rob.
Sorry, Chair,
Yeah.
at a previous meeting, there were just some questions around the pipe types and the techniques that we were using. So I'd asked Rob just to prepare a brief PowerPoint just to spend 5 minutes just taking council through that.
Yeah, can't remember that. Corey, are we pipe experts, are we?
I think it was one that Councillor Stewart just asked about pipe types and age profiles. So we just asked Rob just to pull together a very quick little piece around that.
Yep. Thanks, Rob.
Anyways, what I've tried to do is compress about 100 pages of asset management plan into about 4 slides, just at a higher level. So. Next. Okay, go ahead. Okay, here we go. Just a real basic overview is that the Invercargill reticulate water consists of 420 kilometres of water and 3,000 hydrants. The average age is 56 years old and considered in good condition. It's a real short snapshot of that. It's basically broken down into 3 generations of pipe, which is 1900s to 1940s is cast iron, with the majority of that being upgraded and relined. So that has been reassessed as a much better system than the latter, which is the asbestos cement, which was the primary product which was used between the 1950s and the 1980s. This is a product which has been used internationally and is primarily the focus of the Three Waters replacement scheme. Product is not performed as expected, so it's a bit of an issue, and it's not just our issue.
When you say reformed, what do you mean?
It's not reached the life.
Performed. Oh, right.
Performed like
reformed.
Sorry.
No, that's
designed performed for 100 years. It's
Yeah.
traditionally getting between 50 and 70 years internationally, so that's a focus. It's now been replaced with, from the 90s to today, with PVC and PE products, which are both plastic. I kind of like PE better because it can be all welded together and it's a solid string, so it provides a lot more stability and lower risk of joints. The drainage network is consisted of effectively 800 kilometres of both drainage and stormwater pipes, and 7,300 manholes. The network is 60 years old and average, considered less than average condition. Predominantly, like, it's just the earlier life of the network, 1900 to 1960s, predominantly earthenware, the clay type pipes, oven fired, from the 70s today, mainly PVC and reinforced concrete, probably through more reinforced than PVC in those items. Work program, so the network has been, this drainage network is about 120 k's, has been CCTV footage and scored from 1 to 5. When we're getting lots of faults or by age, we camera it to get the assessment on it. And that generates the remaining useful light and goes into the asset management plans. Once it arrives in the asset management plans ready for delivery, it's prioritised, and we basically have a look at an engineering services, make an assessment of all the other network pipes around it, and making sure we're advancing pipes. We're trying to do 2-3 networks at once in the street, like we're doing Albert Crescent at the moment, did down Levin Street and Leach Street recently, did multiple systems at once. And yes, the asbestos pipes in the water network make up 50% of that network still, so it's still significant risk there. The majority of it in that 50 to 70 year life range. Installation and pipe selections. The water supply is predominantly PE these days, and it can be open trenched or installed by directional drilling, which is a lot less disruptive. But not all sites can take PE, and it's just, we're talking about that Bond and Mersey Street, like we have to assess the ground there. It's that contaminated that we need to put in ductile iron steel pipes and have it wrapped in protective layers to keep the pipe out of the ground. So a lot of work goes into every individual site to make sure we're getting the right pipe materials. We are limited a wee bit down here with some of the technology, but I'll touch on that just a wee bit later. PVC drainage renewals are basically PVC up to 375, when the next stage up at 400, concrete becomes more cost effective and quite significantly more cost effective in the next sizes compared to PVC. Today we're designing for a 100-year design life, and we think that we'll get pipes to go a long way beyond that, but it's still, the 100 years is still important from an asset management and financial planning perspective, that we don't go beyond the 100 years. Another example was there's still 1.5 kilometres of pre-1900 brick main in service in town, and 430 k's of earthenware, which is still in service today. Just on the design regarding stormwater, that's probably our most complicated designs when we're dealing with lots of factors, rain intensity factors that we're designing in for global warming and upsizing. So that's significant engineering into that compared to the other ones, which are pretty much like for like for the majority of them. Now I've just got a couple of different, just some examples and photos of the different methods. Like this is directional drilling, so that's a directional drill. You keep putting, if you see there's a rod casket on the side there, and you just keep adding 2 or 3 metre rods, and you can drill under the ground for up to probably about 100 metres and ream the hole out, so you've actually created a void, circular void in the ground, and to see the pipe there all welded up. That's what they call a pipe string, with that PE all welded up together. You hear people talk about pipe strings, that's what they mean, it's all ready to go. So you ream that hole out and it's filled up with bentonite clays and stuff to free up and lubricate the ground. And then the pipe gets pulled in basically. So there's that big pipe getting pulled in through the ground. As this is happening, that's pushing through a whole lot of clay and gravel material through it, which you have to collect and take out the other side. Good for disruptions. This is on Clyde Street, we've just done before Christmas outside Kmart. And this is a 100 metre drill shot under the railway line. So yeah, so that's good technology, and we use that where we can. Probably not so good for sewer and stormwater, because we use such low grades in the city, with it being so flat, as we get down to like 0.2, 0.3%. So directional drilling doesn't have that control of open trenching, which I'm here now. Majority of our stuff is open trenched, and it has a lot of its challenges, as you can see, as those work environments in there. Like the trenchless stuff, we do as much as we can, but a lot of the time you have to open up, and it's not great conditions to work in at times, especially in winter, down trenches 3 metres deep, water coming in. So you just want to see a wee bit of a bit of a shout out to our guys and contractors working out during the winter in those conditions. Not only with that on live SIR and the like, it can be very unglamorous. So this is the relining technology that has been used extensively in the city over the years for the cast iron pipes. See that pipe on the right hand side, that's a before photo with a lot of, it's like scale, it's not rust, it's deposits, calcium, magnesium and stuff from the water. And then there's the second pipe there is a plain reline pipe, brand new. And there's also another alternative method of slip lining where we can clean out a pipe, slip a new pipe system through it and then expand it by hot air or hot water. You can put a new structural lining pipe inside an old one. And pipe bursting, which is probably my least favourite of the lot, is you get a big head through there and you smash the pipe out and you expand it and you pull the pipe directly in behind it. And hope for the best on alignment because you've set your hole based on bursting the pipe in front of you, and that's, yeah, it's another technology which has been used quite extensively, not my preferred one. But any questions? No, we haven't got much time. Oh, no.
So I've got Trish and then Barry. Yes, that's right.
So when you line those pipes, are they then identified as new pipes from then on, or are they considered like the old one in terms of moving forward?
Through the chair, they get a new life.
Right.
They're basically considered a new pipe, but probably not 100 years, might have 80 or something. So
yeah,
it's dependent on the treatment in the existing pipe.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, quick 2 questions. I understand that Queenstown have got some technology where they drill pipes out. Is that what you're talking about there?
Yes, very similar. I'm not exactly sure of the technology there.
We've got the ex-Auckland, and it's pretty scarce to get hold of, but they have the ability to drill out.
In previous year, Invercargill City Council and Firebond contracts did an extensive relining, dozens and dozens of kilometres over the 2000s.
I wonder if the one you're talking, I know there is a product that they developed specifically to reline some of the larger pipes in Queenstown using what they call a spiral wound pipe technology. There have been some of them that we've looked at. We haven't used it yet, but we've looked at it for some of ours.
Ex-Auckland, they use it. The other question is in relation to, you mentioned there are some pipes and where they sit in the ground. One of the contractors that disposes of glass at the moment said to me, one of the good things for piping is to have crushed glass in and around pipes. It keeps you away from other sources of contaminants, and it also moves a little bit as the pipe needs to move as well. So something sort of like that. That was McGregor's that told me that.
Through the chair.
I'm happy to take that one, Chair, because I've looked at it a little bit. Just in terms of any of the pipe bedding material that we use, we don't really mind what it is as long as it meets a material specification. So the key thing with using anything like a glass product, and I understand that they're looking at getting it down to quite a fine product, as long as we can get it to meet those specs, then we'd be happy enough to use it.
One way to get rid of that glass. Thank you.
Barry?
Yeah, as far as the water pipe goes, I presume they're fusion welded joints.
Through the chair, the PE's all welded together, so you get basically a single length of string of pipe.
Yeah,
that was on the slide there. You can do it by butt welding, where you heat up the ends and you stick it together basically, or you can use couplers. And
yeah. As far as the couplers go, would there be a guarantee on those, like lifespan guarantee is the same as the pipe?
Without having any specific information, but yeah, that's the target though, yeah. Depending on the couple.
Technical. Steve?
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just want to say it's a really good presentation. So thanks for it. And can we have that? Can we have the presentation sent to us?
We can place it in the
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
also
just get access to it. It's really good. Thank you.
getting down on pipes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Rob. Listening on some of the responses there, my question is, our current pipe network that we're working on and what we're seeing that we need to work on in the future, do you think that volume of what we're going to have in the future will meet the sufficient demand for development in industrial areas and also housing for intensification?
That's probably.
Probably less of a Rob question as he does the delivery. What we've currently got in Invercargill is a district plan and a infrastructure strategy that focuses primarily on infill development. And we do still have quite a bit of capacity within the residential network, in particular for infill capacity. Where we find our constraints are primarily around our commercial industrial areas, and that's where our constraints are. So whilst in general we would say we have quite a lot of capacity in our network, there are those choke points around the place, and probably the main one for us at the moment is that ability to transfer larger volumes of water from the north of the city to the south of the city towards Bluff and Awarua in particular.
Very good. Thanks very much, Rob. That was really useful. Can I have a move and seconder, please? Thanks, Barry. Seconder, Karen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, next one up is the infrastructure consenting program for 3 pieces. So Bluff Wastewater, Alternative Water and Clifton Wastewater.
I'll speak to that one,
Thank you.
Chair. Just a very quick update. I will take the report primarily as read, with the only piece to note is that the interim 2-year consent for Bluff Wastewater, as you'll recall, Council made the decision that due to the legislative uncertainty that we were currently faced with, that we would make that decision to go with a short-term interim consent and then reconsider post the legislation landing what the long-term solution for Bluff Wastewater would be. So the team are still on track looking to get that consent submitted later this month for a 2-year consent term. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Ria.
Erin, for the alternate water supply, with the short brief that we've had here, how is that going precisely in terms of, I know that we were able to establish through the investigation that there is potential for water supply, but where are we at exactly with that project?
So with that project, there is a council workshop that has been scheduled in later this month to bring back the investigation findings from the latest subsidence investigation work that's been completed, with a view to council or infrastructure and projects making a recommendation to council at its July meeting around essentially go or no go on that project and what staging we would implement, as that'll need to be submitted as part of the consent process for the water consent.
Happy with that. Thank you. Breen.
Thanks, Chair. There was an interesting comment about why council made that decision to opt for an interim consent. Now, back in December last year, we had the choice of voting on the proposed LTP solution of $7 million, and that was the budget allowed. The solution met that budget, conformed with...
Sorry, Councillor, I'm going to have to stop you. Is there a question in what you're saying?
The question is...
Get to it.
Yeah, okay, I'll just, well, if you
Can
don't...
you get to your question?
Okay, so the question is, obviously, if we made it for that reason, because of the new regulation, obviously we must have an idea of what the costs of the options are. We must have, otherwise the decision...
That's not a question.
It is. So I'm asking Erin, what are the sort of foreseen costs of... We're looking at 2 options. We're looking at a long pipeline solution, and we're looking at a very higher tech treatment plant to do the discharge and the low energy waters. So what I'm doing is, obviously we must have an indicative idea, and that's what I'm asking Erin about, because obviously we turned down...
So you want to know what the indicative cost might be
how
of
much cheaper,
meeting the regulations.
How much cheaper than the 7 million are we going to hit?
So what's your question around
Yeah, about that price.
Are we
Do
going to hit a cheaper option than 7 million, or is your question around?
you want me to write it down for you?
Well, you've asked a couple of vague questions. One is
Okay,
around,
well,
is it
okay.
less than 7
I will
million?
make it in less than 5 words. What are the estimated costs of the 2 viable solutions that we are aware of?
Well, hold on. Well, let's clarify what are the viable solutions. What do you
One
what are you
solution we're
saying?
aware of, I've already, look, okay, I'll say
Well,
it
you're not
here.
being very clear on your
I will-
question.
I will say it, okay, there are 2 solutions we have heard of as councillors. One is an upgraded treatment plant to fit in with the low energy water discharge, coastal water discharge. The other option we've heard of is an extended pipeline into an area which obviously bypasses the low energy coastal thing.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking,
What are the costs of each?
what are the costs of that and
alternative?
how they compare to the 7 million that we turned down in December
Okay, thank you.
for the 4th time?
Through yourself, Chair. At the time that council made the decision at the end of last year, we didn't present any costs around what it would cost to comply with the new legislation. That's because at that stage, that new standards framework had not been released. It was only released this year. And so at the time, there was quite a bit of commentary from ministers, from Te Mata Arawai, around the fact that the new government felt that the existing RMA process was too expensive and that they believed that they could implement a process that would create cost efficiencies for councils. At the time, though, we did not know what that impact would be, and council had to make a decision to either go with its existing process or to wait and see whether or not there was a different outcome out of the new legislation. But we did not know at the time what those costs would be. Now that that discussion paper has come out, we have some idea around what those standards are going to look like. They are still in a state of flux though, and we don't believe that they are going to land until around September, October this year. And so therefore at the moment, as you've noted, we had advised council that one potential option would be to do nitrogen removal at Bluff to meet the standards for ammoniacal nitrogen removal at the site. One of the other potential options would be to not meet the standards of the high energy coastal area, but to discharge into the open ocean area, which didn't have the requirement for removal of ammoniacal nitrogen, but would require us to pipe out into the FOVO Strait. Now, at the moment, those standards are only in draft, and until such time as we get closer to those standards landing and what the time frame will be for those, we won't be doing a great deal of work on costing those up at this stage. And that's the benefit that the short-term consent provides. However, I am very conscious that given that we've got the Clifton consent coming, we still need to move at quite a rapid pace around Bluff.
Just on that point, so a new wording within the proposed legislation was the low energy versus high energy, wasn't it, which previously didn't apply the consent, is that correct?
The low energy, those different zones,
Yeah.
of which the ones that are applying to us for Bluff are the low energy or the open ocean zones, have only now been defined through those draft standards.
And there's some, well, debate, I've heard at least, around, is the Bluff area actually a low energy site, given
Yeah.
most fishermen
So
would
that's-
say it's a pretty high energy site, was at the weekend.
And that's something that
But
we've
it needs to be
submitted
defined.
back through through
Yeah,
the submission process.
yeah, and
So
so,
hold on, my question hasn't yet been finished answered.
well, I think your question was
about the
around the cost. What Erin has said, and I'm comfortable with it as chair, is that because of the legislative change that's in place, which is why we deferred or took the option we did at council around the extension of the consent to enable us to make informed decisions about what we need to put into our wastewater system at Bluff. We can't cost them because we don't know what the legislation looks like. So for the example, just to be really clear, it was proposed in the new legislation, this wording around low energy versus high energy water. If the Bluff area is classified as a low energy area, in my understanding, it would require, and one option could be, the extension of a pipe further out. Now, how far that pipe needs to be would be subject to scientific data around water flow and all those sorts of things. We don't know that, so how can we possibly cost it?
To ascertain is that the decision in December gives the ratepayers the confidence that it's gonna be under the $7 million.
Well, at the moment, that's what we understand it's going to be, and
That's
until there's
correct.
any legislation for us to predict it's going to be any different, will be foolhardy.
Now, that's great. All I wanted to know was
So
not
you're not asking us to make a foolhardy prediction about a potential cost that we don't know what the legislation looks like, are you?
now, hold on, that foolhardy decision was made back in December.
Well, in your opinion, anyway, let's move on. Tom,
Thank you. The 2-year application, as I understand it, is to so that we understand better what the requirements would be that come through the new legislation's logic. I would have thought a very key part of whether that's granted will be the response to the application by Renoka and Tammy. Now, I note that in the paper it says that we are continuing to work in partnership is continuing with Tammy and Te Renoka Awarua, on the basis the application will not be supported by them. There's a big difference between taking a neutral position and taking a opposing position, and I just wondered whether they have clarified to you, and I appreciate, I'm not addressing you in this, I'm just wondering whether they have clarified whether they're going to oppose it or whether they'll just stand aside.
I wouldn't propose to speak for the Runanga. The information.
No, I'm not asking you to, I'm just
The
asking whether they have told you yet, whether.
The information that I have is simply that they do not support the short-term consent, whether they take an active role in that through the consent process or not, I couldn't speak to.
Okay, thank you.
no, okay, no further questions. Right, well, we need a mover and a seconder for receiving those papers for noting. Thanks, Barry. Seconded, Tom. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Coming back to so tab 8, the capital projects report.
Chair, I just might give some introduction
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
this
was
one
gonna
because
say.
it looks a little bit different to what it has previously, and Bruce is a new face at the table. So this will be Bruce's first time presenting this report. He's currently stepped in an acting capacity with Lee Butcher leaving council, whilst we're currently recruiting for that position. And so he's taken on that role of leading the project management office team. One of the things that is a good thing and also a little bit of an interesting step for us is that particularly those elected members who've been here since the 2021 long-term plan, which was landed on shortly after I arrived, was that we had quite a large, what was known as a strategic roadmap program of projects. Some of those were big, chunky projects that we weren't quite sure how to tackle, and some of those were what we started to term stone in the shoe projects, which were ones that weren't necessarily big value, but getting them delivered had eluded us and had become difficult. And so the project management office was set up to deliver that program of work. What we've gotten to now is that the majority of those projects that sat in that strategic program have now either been delivered or almost delivered. Probably the one outlier of that is the museum project. And so the decision was made to essentially separate the project management office's focus back to infrastructure projects, and obviously Jamie was allocated to lead the museum stream of work. Now, this is the first report that is now coming through with this new look of what the infrastructure PMO will now be doing. And at the moment, whilst we're waiting for this next run of big projects, particularly in the wastewater space, to start coming through, I've asked the project management office to give us some assistance, particularly with our property renewals program, as that's something that we need to do some work on in the coming years. We've got quite a bit of a backlog. So in addition to some key infrastructure projects, the team are also working through a program of property projects as well. So I'm happy to hand over to Bruce if there's anything else that you want to speak to that one, or just go to questions.
Yeah, we can largely take the report as read. Thanks, Chair and councillors. Just some quick highlights worth noting. Brings home. So we're now 90% complete. You'll see in the report that circa 9 kilometres of pipe, which is a good news story. We're finishing up in Garner Street and about to hit River Street. At contractors forecasting at earlier August date, we're forecasting early September date, which is probably the more realistic date. So just highlighting that here. The other second key project to highlight for a bit of an update is the Mercy Street, the Rising Main Duplication Project. So positively over the last period, we had the design consultant RFP. Positively, we had nine tenders submitted, which was a good result. And as of last week, we've currently got a preferred consultant status there, looking to appoint them this week. And secondly, we've also had a registration of interest process in parallel for the main contractor. We've had 5 registration of interests registered and evaluated last period, and all 5 have been carried forward to the RFP stage. And last 2 projects quickly to update on, we're commencing the stage 2 of the Housing Innovation on the Street project this period as well. And the Southwick Aquatic Centre wall modifications project is commencing, and also the Aroa roof replacement project is commencing, commenced last week, sorry. Thank you.
So just from my perspective, so there's a few projects that haven't been on this report previously, but they're projects that have been in council, they've just been pulled through to this reporting process, is that correct?
Correct, part of the long-term plan approved projects.
Yeah, so for example, the Bluff Centre, I think the crematorium building's a new one in the Aquatic Centre. Yeah, okay. So that just gives us good oversight of sort of what's happening around the business, which is really good, so thank you. Any questions?
And sorry, Chair, I'd note that those renewal projects were previously completed by our essentially our operations and maintenance teams.
Yeah.
What we've done is to pull some of those projects. There's still some stuff being delivered through our BAU teams, but we've also split that workload into the PMO as well to try to make sure that we can deliver that program, because there's quite a bit to get through.
Yeah, no, it's good for us to just keep abreast of what's happening. No questions, you get off light, first time. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, just to accept the report? Thanks, Leslie, seconded, Alex. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Bruce, well done. Okay, so I think we're up to the capital portfolio, and then we'll also go on to tab 5, which is the response to the notice of motions. We'll do the capital portfolio first. Jamie, welcome. You're not new, you've done a couple of these, haven't you? Old hand.
Getting used to
it. So through you, Chair, I think I'll take the report as read. Is there any questions on the capital portfolio report about the museum?
Mayor Clark.
Yeah, just 2 quick questions. I noticed that you've got mana whenua equivalent experience via the Waihapai contract. Where does the iwi liaison committee sit in all this? So are they engaged?
And yeah, I might go to Rex on this one. Just sorry, Jamie, just because Rex has been involved in the process. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, the Waihapai contract provides the opportunity for our museum experienced team and staff to have engaged with Waihapai Rūnaka to manage that piece of work on behalf of the 4 Papatipu Rūnaka. The iwi liaison, and they have formed a tuia, what they call the tuia group, Te Unua group, advisory group, I think it's called, to be that point of contact for the 4 Papatipu Rūnaka and for the museum experience development team. The iwi liaison committee is primarily tasked through the Collections Trust to provide support for the overall collection management and enhancement and development back to that trust specifically and directly. So the iwi liaison committee does not have a direct role with respect to the Waihapai contract, but it does have a direct role in relation to liaison and working alongside and with the trust as per the trust's trustee.
So it's just to summarise, it's almost an operational and then a governance thing, isn't it? The liaison committee is the governance piece and the IPOD contract is the operational piece that works with the Eloise and Co. Second one,
What Rex said.
Yeah.
When we had the last presentation from the Gibson Group, people got really excited about that. And I raised at the time whether we would do a 3D walkthrough of that initial area, that sky, land, sea experience in the front end. They said they would, and then they sort of, some mutterings in the background that sort of said, oh, we don't want to take away from the big flash opening at the end.
I might have to just, yeah, I think it's a PE item you're talking through, so we might just.
That's all right.
Tom?
So, I mean, it's really encouraging that we've now got a process for developing the pre-European side of history. And I mean, that was crucial to be able to meet the timetable. But a question at that begs is, how about what's happening with developing the story on the other side? How has that been developed? Because presumably there is no equivalent body, or is there?
Yeah, do you want to?
Well,
it's not really a you question, though, is it?
Well,
have a go at it, and I can help.
Well, from a design control group perspective, the design control group is liaising both with staff and Gibson International to support the work that you're talking about, Councillor Campbell, and currently in negotiations for signing off the contract with Gibson International to allow that piece of work to be maintained and continue, which will involve engagement as well.
Yeah, and I think to sort of add to that, Tom, like, as the project lead on it, I'm really comfortable with what's developing up in the story of Southland and the different components, and Eloise and the Gibson Group, and and all the stakeholders, including Mana Whenua, are working really well together, and it's going to be pretty amazing. So, I think we had a discussion the other day about the role that FIX plays in Southland and how we might integrate that into sort of the landscaping as an example of how we connect story with physical plus history. So, look, I'm really comfortable that the story of Southland is going to be well told, very integrated story that reflects all the aspects of the Southland story. So, but we should get a sneak at that in the next few weeks, maybe month or so, of what the experience design really looks like. And I think that'll give you a better flavour for where we're at. Yeah. Alex.
I'm happy with your explanation, Chair, to just let it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. No further questions. Thanks, Rex, for coming to the forward. Okay, there being none, we've just for noting, so can I have a move and seconded to receive the report and note the current status? Leslie, seconded Barry. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. And then item 5 on the agenda, or tab 5, sorry, on board box, response to the notice of motion. Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. Through Chair, I think I've put a report back here regarding the notice of motion on the previously requested. I'll take that as read. Is there any other discussion on that?
Yep. Ringy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to focus on one of the questions, just 2.2, which is the 249,000 spent on legal services. I just want to open with the section from the Local Government Act, which 14, section 14, 1F. A local authority should undertake any commercial transactions in accordance with sound business practices. So now I just want to ask about the 249,000 legal fees. It states in your report 40,000 for mediation, and which leaves 209,000 for mainly developing contracts to hire contractors at different stages of the project. Now, over the last 2 weeks, I've spent time talking with both the construction industry and the legal fraternity. Now, for 209,000 at what seems to be the agreed value of $500 an hour, but you may contradict this, that's 400 hours of lawyers' fees to develop this project. Now, I've found out somehow.
We've got a question here.
Yeah. The question is building up to why this is this amount. So I found out that in Invercargill Central, the cost of legal fees was much less than 50,000, and that was a reasonably big build. Now, in the construction industry, they use contracts like NZS 39-16, which is design and build. You can buy it off the shelf for $200, and then obviously to make it unique for that project, you can modify it, and that would require lawyers. Now, my question is why this project needed so much money in legal fees to prepare these contracts, because it doesn't fit with everything I've read and heard. And basically, if you don't need to answer, because based on the
So
report.
you're asking questions you don't want to answer to.
No, I said you don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, you said you don't need to.
Or if you don't need to. Because regardless, I'm going to be writing to the Office of the Auditor General to seek further investigation.
So are you asking for permission to do that?
No, I'm not asking, I'm doing that. Okay, it's underway. But Jamie, I'm giving you the opportunity to explain the 209,000 spent on creating contracts to hire contractors.
So just before you go, Jamie, so we'll note, obviously, there's 3 projects within the project. So there's 3 separate, if you take, for example, contract to build, you've got 3 separate contracts that have been done through the project. One at the storage facility, one at the Tuatarium, and then the thing. Now, all of those are very bespoke, different buildings. They're all part of the overall project. So just to give a little bit of insight into the way the project's constructed, that's just a small example, right? So that's just for noting.
No, sorry, the 249,000.
I'm not trying to.
Is for the museum.
Take a breath. I'm just trying to explain the relevance of the thing. Jamie, have you got
At this stage, I'd like to raise a point of order, Chair, that I wasn't going to do this, but because you are interrupting in such a way, I believe you have a conflict as project lead, and you should not be chairing this and allowing free and frank discussion. I believe
Can you say which point of order that you are referring to?
Yeah, just let's just leave that. I mean,
well,
so you've made your point, Jamie.
Chair, on the point of order.
Well, no, we're just not going to get into a point.
I have the right to.
Well, yeah, well, go then, yeah.
We've discussed this many times before. People cannot stop conversations, as councillor did with you there, just by injecting a point of order. You must quote which section, and there's about 7 standing orders that you have briefed. Just to jump in and say it doesn't like what you're saying, or you've got a conflict.
11.1 of the Code of Conduct.
It's not standing order, that's a standing orders.
Yeah, there's your point. It's not code of conduct, doesn't standing order. Jamie.
I believe the question that was put forward was answered based on the fact that it was the sum of was for the P1225 program of work. I can concur that it was that there has been consulting engagement over the period of that program of work.
Yeah.
So it's not for one particular reason.
Yeah, and also with what we've worked through the change and how we're building the physical part of Te Anua. That contract and legal elements of that contract have served us well, so we can pass it through to the design and build process, which enabled us to speed up as opposed to the previous process we're on. So that costs money, but Trish. Oh, sorry, Rhea. I'll come in. Sorry. Trish.
Just to clarify, these costs for the museum are for the total museum project.
1225, yeah.
1225.
Yeah, three components. Yeah. Rhea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just really got a question really through the report back that we received from the original notice of motion on page 2 of this report. It's really in the summaries of a response to resolution 2.2.1. And when I read through this and I looked at the cost of the consultant costs.
The Lex in-house one.
Yes, yeah, with, what was his name? Sorry, I forgot the man's name. But what I looked at is that it says in the report that he was hired for this job for 12 months when he's reported on his website was for 14 months. I mean, I'm just wondering what is the actual time frame? Because when I worked out the 388 plus thousand, it equates to nearly $28,000 a month for him to do his role. And I realised over the scope of those 3 projects that there is, I guess, it was an acceptable expense. What I don't understand from this report and what I find hard to follow is that it's quite vague and on the detail. It's very, very light. So how can we make and continue to make governance decisions when I don't feel that we've had all the information for us to actually absorb this report on? So I'm not sure that's actually a question. It's more so a clarification.
For us, we're not making a decision on the paper. We're just receiving information back. But I think what you're saying is that, well, there's a couple of things. You're wanting more specifics around the time frame.
Well, which is true. Is it 12 months or 14 months? Because it does make a difference in an accurate report.
Yeah, so that's a fair point. Can we answer that now, or do we need to come back to Councillor Bowman?
I'm not sure where the 14 months is that you're referring to, Councillor.
I think it's
on his
website, on his website.
Yeah, it's on his
on his
website
website.
as a consultant that he says that he was employed by us for 14 months. Yet the report says that he was employed by us for 12 months working on those pre-operational devices that we were seeking. So just want a clarification.
I
Which is
don't personally have the information on that to hand, so I'm quite happy to take that away and come back.
Rex, have you got any?
Well, just in the report, it says it was for a period between April 2023 and May 2024.
Which is
It's 13 months.
It's 14
Yeah.
months.
Well, no, that's actually 14 months.
Yeah, 14 months, that's right. Yeah, if you're inclusive.
Inclusive, 14 months, that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, so inclusive is April to May. Is that,
Yeah.
yeah, you happy with that?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
That was my point, that the report actually said that, and
Yeah.
that made 14 months inclusive.
Thank you. Lizzie, so you dealt with, Mayor Clark, you were the same?
No, that was.
Okay. Okay, no further questions? Okay.
Chair, just to clarify, you said, someone has said that the 249 was spread across 3 projects. In the spreadsheet that I was submitted to by Patricia, it purely lists under museum the $249,000. The other.
So we'll get clarification on that for you.
No, it's here. It's clarified. It is, but people seem to want to include it for the Tuatarium in the storage.
Well, let's get clarification around maybe it's been referenced by staff as museum when it's actually.
The spreadsheet was given to all the councillors.
Yeah, well, let's check the spreadsheet's right.
It's right here.
Well, I haven't got it in front of me, so we'll do that for you and we'll get it back to you. Okay, so do we need to receive that? Can I have someone move? Thanks, Tom. Second, Steve. Receive that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, okay, we're on Tom.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move into public excluded for the purposes of there's some sensitive information that we'll be talking through with some contracts. So that's the reason we need to be in public excluded.
I'll move
Guys.
it.
Thanks, Leslie. Second, Barry. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.